The big snowstorm of just a little over a week ago had a lot of people recalling the great blizzard of 1978. And at that time, I was associate pastor at Sacred Heart in Fremont. The storm raged for a day or two, complete whiteout. And at some time in the course of the day, we got a phone call asking if they could use our small elementary school, which was attached to the church, if they could use that as one of the shelters, because the place that was going to be the shelter on the other side of town was without electricity, without heat. And the pastor said, sure. So about mid-afternoon, I volunteered to walk over and unlock the building so that when the National Guard came with people that were stranded out on the Ohio Turnpike or Route 20, as they brought them in, I'd be able to greet them. By this time, the snow was still coming, the wind was ferocious, and it was extremely cold. So I really bundled up. And from our back door of the rectory, which is out by the street, there was a sidewalk that went back past the convent, and then to the parking lot, and across the parking lot, a straight shot, maybe 100, 150 yards, normally a very pleasant walk. So I was all bundled up, and I went out. And I can recall not seeing anything, but thinking at least that I had a sense of direction. Just keep going straight. Keep going straight. I don't know at what point, but I finally realized I must have been beyond the convent, maybe there at the parking lot. And then I kept on walking, and kept on walking, and kept on walking, thinking I should be at the church. The church was the biggest building. I could go there and go through to the school. I don't know what happened, but suddenly it was almost like the wind itself took a breath. And there was this moment of clarity, as if it all stopped for just one split second. And as I'm standing there, over here, 90 degrees different, I saw the corner of the church. And just that quickly, it was gone again. But I realized I had been going the wrong direction. I had been lost. So I had a new point of reference. So I was able to turn, and eventually I hit the side of the church building, almost literally. And then I followed it around to the door and got inside the building, and from there I could go to the school. What an amazing experience to have that one little moment of clarity, one little moment to allow me to redirect myself. I call it a point of reference. The side of the building was the point of reference. Suddenly I knew where I was going again. We need points of reference in our life, especially when we're caught in the middle of a storm. Now, we use points of reference all the time. You know, we give directions. I don't know how many times in the last X number of years being here at this new site, I've told people, they call and say, well, where is John the 23rd? And I always ask, do you know where Levis Commons is? Seems like everybody knows. I say, well, Levis Commons, go 2 miles straight south, and it's on the other side of the road. Every so often, people actually confess afterwards, well, we came quite a distance, and then we saw this funny-looking big white thing, and we turned in there, the tennis club. We might be a contemporary building, but that's not us. We use points of reference in conversations about people. Don't you remember that person, the one with the wonderful smile, that person with the deep voice, that person who just made everybody feel at home? We do that kind of thing all the time. And we do with points of reference, even about stories we tell. Last night, before Mass, a couple came in. They stopped me and they said, Father Herb, don't you remember? You officiated at our wedding 33 years ago at New Bavaria. The truth is, I did remember the wedding because it's the only one I ever did at New Bavaria. We have points of reference, and we need that often to figure out where we're headed. We need that in terms of the conversation or where our goal is. So today, on the second Sunday of Lent, with the story of the Transfiguration in Mark's Gospel, we are being given a point of reference. It's a point that's going to remind us where we're headed through Lent. We already know the end of the story. Jesus showing up in glory on the mountaintop with Moses and Elijah. It's a complete indication that Jesus' life ends in glory, the resurrection. We know Easter is going to come after Lent. But it's also that all that we see about Jesus is a fulfillment of both the prophets and the law of the Old Testament, Elijah and Moses, these superstars of those days of old. It's a point of reference. I think it was very much a point of reference for those three apostles, Peter, James, and John. You know, those were the three that were also accompanied Jesus not too much later for the agony in the garden, the night before he died. They saw the worst moments, the most painful moments, sweating blood, the sheer agony. And they must have had to rely on that point of reference of glory as well. This is the same person. The early church saw this as a point of reference. They went through their persecutions. They must have gone through a lot of doubts and worry, and they must have been challenged by others like, well, Jesus, he's not really the Son of God. You know, he's not the one that really rose from the dead. And they had this to refer back to. So I would dare say that here today, on February 28th, 2021, this is a point of reference for us as well. Because, you see, we are going through storms. It's almost like going through the storm and having the moment of clarity when I can see the edge of the church. We are going through our own storms. And sometimes we feel so besieged. We feel so overwhelmed. Now, sometimes those difficult times come, you know, like out of the blue. A death in the family, especially an unexpected death. How do we deal with that? Or a loss of a job, or people moving away, or a horrendous relationship that ends badly. We have those, and we have to know we can get through it. We have to have the sign of hope. But there's also the other kinds of things, where there's no like one big thing that's bad, but it's sort of like an ongoing thing that sort of erodes hope in us. It's like, well, I think like this last year. It has just overwhelmed us a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. A year ago, middle of March, we weren't sure what was ahead of us, but we all had some pretty good hopes. We'll do the best we can. We're not just going to survive a pandemic. We're going to make this a healthy time of growth in faith. We're going to keep on praying with our families. We are going to take this to heart. And many people did, and many people did not, because it wears us down. That's why we need a day like today. We need to remember. And that opening line that Sister Anne Mary did in the second reading, Paul's letter to the Romans, a wonderful line where Jesus simply says, Paul says, if God is for us, who can be against us? That's the reminder for us. If God is really on our side, then what does it matter? We can get through the storms. We can get through the most difficult times because we are never alone. I sometimes think about that blizzard of 78 when I was out there in the parking lot. Had I not had that little moment of clarity where I could see where the church actually was, who knows what might have happened. I'm very humbled and very appreciative to God for granting that one little moment of clarity. As I recall that, I realize God always does that if we're aware of it. God gives us the moment. We have to take advantage of it, redirect our lives to look for the point of reference that leads us to the glory of the victorious Christ.